Welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful marketing strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. We have another great episode today, so don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, here's your host, physical therapist, marketing expert, and CEO of Practice Promotions, Neil Trickett.
Hello, and welcome to the PT Marketing Power Hour, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus, we're going to talk about maximizing your profits while minimizing your hours. And so how can you streamline your practice? And we're blessed to have here our good friend, Jamie Schreier. He's with Practice Freedom U, and he really helps practice owners who've been stressed, overwhelmed, they're struggling, and helps them understand the systems and benefits to placing things in their practice so they can treat less and earn more. So welcome, Jamie. Great to have you on here again.
Hey, Neil, great to be here. Glad you reached out and we made this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's bring your expertise. Let's bring what you know here. You've worked with a lot of practice owners across the years, and you're a great consultant. You really help practice owners see where they need to implement systems and really handle those things of being a practice owner. So, we've been talking a lot recently about how PTs need to stop seeing themselves as a practitioner and start seeing themselves more as a leader and a business owner. So, you've had an incredible success, and journey as a business owner. So, like for you, when did that mental shift from being a PT to a leader happen to you in your practice?
Yeah, really good question. As a former private practice owner, I had a practice for many years, but I felt like I've always had that business owner bug. Growing up, my dad was, I guess you could say, an entrepreneur. He had a couple of small businesses around health food before health food was kind of cool. It was in the 70s. So I got to see him, and obviously he worked a ton of hours. It was just the way you do it back then. And so I always knew I wanted to go into business for myself. So after a few years of just kind of bouncing around, I got that courage and scraped up a few bucks and kind of did my own thing, as I know a lot of people do. And it was exciting. I was with my fiance at the time. She was at the front desk. My wife now, Colleen. I was the therapist, and we did our thing, and for the first year and a half, 2 years, it was really great. And then I started getting a little overwhelmed, started to realize I was working more and more hours. We started growing, so we started hiring people, and that's when I became a little stressed, a little overwhelmed. And I became more and more, or I should say, less confident and more uncertain about like what I was doing. The thing that I was most confident in is I was a really good clinician. I invested a lot of time, a lot of money. I read books, I took courses, all those types of things, being a good clinician. But the problems that I was facing wasn't, a complicated back problem or shoulder. It was hiring. It was, what questions do you ask? It's what forms. It was marketing and like, how to, figure out the key metrics. Like, it was all these things that I had, really no experience in. But hey, it doesn't matter if you have experience or not in a business, as I'm sure you face the same things. Like, every business has those things. And I think that's where the biggest like shift started to happen for me was, oh my God, I really don't know what I'm doing as much as I thought I knew I was doing. I have an ego like everybody else. I like to think that, hey, I'm really smart at treating people's spine, so I should be good at hiring and running a business. So That was my first memory, was realizing that, man, I'm not really sure what's going on here. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I can recall.
Yeah, I think myself and probably many of our listeners here can relate to those similar stories that you get busier and busier in your practice, and you might have that epiphany sometimes of, hey, I'm great at what I do for treating patients, but I don't know, I got to figure this other thing out. I might not understand, what I need to do from a business aspect, right? And that's a whole nother skill level. It's all, being a business owner, right? You have to learn the skills of business, and it's not the same as treating patients. It's very different.
It's very different. And I know you've heard the story, but for the people that haven't, so a few years into business, I'm already having this epiphany of, okay, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but a lot of times you don't have time to think. Like every day is I'm coming in, I'm treating patients, dealing with the insurance stuff, dealing with, trying to market, not really great at doing that because I'm too busy seeing patients. And then we're driving home. You and I were just talking about the beach. We're driving home from a getaway weekend that was very rare at the time. And I got a call from my father-in-law who said, Jamie, I just saw your building on TV. Your building's on fire.
Oh my God.
And, I was really stressed at the time. And I look at my wife and I go, good, I hope it's my suite and I hope it burns to the ground. I mean, who would actually say that about their practice that they worked so hard to build? But that was where I was at the time. And that was probably the biggest single point of, you know what, you now have kind of a reset button, because it was my suite. It did burn down. And I had the opportunity to either quit and be like, you know what, this whole business thing's not for me. Maybe I should just go back to be, just a regular clinician in someone else's practice or what have you. Or what if I actually just learned how to do it? Because like you said, it's skills, right? I'm intelligent enough, or at least I like to believe, and I feel like I have, a good personality to connect with people and all that, but I just didn't have the skills to know what I was doing from a business standpoint.
Mhm.
So that was really the big shift for me of, dude, you need to invest in these skills, just like you invested in your education in school and even outside of school, educating, and different continuing ed and stuff like that. So that fire really was one that kind of set me back for a few months to be like, yeah, Jamie, either S or get off the pot, so to speak. And I was like, okay, I need to learn what I'm doing. I don't want to give up this business. I don't want to give up this profession. I just need to know how to do it.
Yeah, and boy, what a crazy life event to go through. That's like just a complete refresh, right? Restart, and headaches of their own. But you said something there where you had that frustration moment where you really didn't care if it burned down or not, right?
Mhm.
And I think, again, kind of relating to my past experiences in practice when I wasn't as solid in my business skills, and I'm sure again a lot of our listeners can relate. But there's that point where you might realize, like, hey, my practice is controlling me. I'm not controlling my practice, right?
Yeah,
And I'm sure you see a lot of clinicians that you talk to in your consulting that kind of come to you.
Yeah, I would say every single person, and I know we're going to dive into some of that today, but just every single person I've ever talked to in a discovery call or just a conversation, it really comes down to control. If you asked me, or like, Jamie, what's kind of the number one thing that's out there that is preventing people from kind of getting over this hump, that was really for me, is I just didn't have control. I didn't have control over my time. I didn't have control over my schedule. I mean, I do, but I really didn't. My income was all in third parties and everything else. And, it's kind of a tough feeling that you're running a business, you're running the operations, you're treating patients, you're putting everything that you have into this, your livelihood. I mean, my wife was a part of it as well. So my entire family's a part of this business. And me as the owner feel like I'm not in control. Yeah, when that reset button hit, when the fire happened, I felt initial relief. Then I was scared out of my mind when I was like, oh my God, now there's no money coming in. Of course, I was underinsured because I had no idea about that. I mean, who would thought you had a fire? You don't need insurance for that. But that's a side point. But yeah, that was really a huge, kind of a huge thing of feeling like you're so overwhelmed, you're so burnt out, you're so stressed, you don't have control, you have all this pressure on you, and then your place burns down. And yeah, it just came out of my mouth. Yeah, I just hope it burns down because I kind of relate it back, looking back now, I relate it like, I grew up in Maryland and, we have snowstorms sometimes in the winter, and there's just no greater feeling than having snow. And then all of a sudden seeing on the news, your county is closed. I mean, it's a snow day. The greatest day in the world is a snow day because it's kind of unexpected. That Monday, this happened on a Sunday, Neil. That Monday was a snow day for me. I went to the place, the ambulance, or not the ambulance, but the fire trucks and all that were pretty much gone. The place was, just all charred. And it was a snow day. And then a few days later, the snow day went to, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So, but the initial reaction was, hey, it's a snow day. Guess who's not going to work on Monday?
So if you look back on those times too, if you had to think about like, what was your number one regret from your early days as a practice owner?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to look at things as regrets, but if I've reflected back, in the past, and, if I had to do it over again, I would have swallowed my pride, swallowed my ego, and I would have hired somebody to help me. Not an employee, but a coach, a mentor, a consultant. I mean, that's probably why I do. I know it's a huge part of why I do right now, coaching and helping other people in their businesses, because we don't know what we don't know. And my ego, because I was so good at being a clinician, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of practice owners over the years, I've really never met anyone that wasn't really good at their craft. So they're all good practice owners, and I'm like, well, you're not randomly good. You're good because you put the effort and the time to learn it. And for some reason, I kick myself, but at some reason I'm like, why couldn't I just get over myself to be like, Jamie, I don't care how smart you think you are, or you read a business book or something. You don't know what you're doing. And, if I had to go back, I would tell that young punk to say, you know what, swallow your ego a little bit, swallow your pride a little bit, invest your time and invest some money, and just hire someone that can help you not go through all of these challenges and problems. And you've heard me share plenty of stories. I've had probably more than most when it comes to setbacks and pitfalls in trying to build and grow my practice. Luckily and fortunately, finally getting it to a point that it was able to run the way I wanted it to run. But that was, I mean, that's number one. It's like, man, just get help, Jamie. Just get help from someone who's been there, done that, and stop, being, whatever.
Yeah, I think
prideful or whatever.
And the thing that I've learned over time too, and I see in others, is that as clinicians, we're problem solvers. We go in there, we look, we try to figure things out, we try to diagnose, right, and then try to come up with a plan of. That's what we do. That's what we're ingrained to do in our training. And so then we look at. But however, in our training, we still go for courses and learn from experts on how to get better at treating, right? And so we don't really take that same philosophy to the business skills aspect. We think that, hey, I'll figure it out. I'll see what my friend Joe's doing in his practice. But we don't necessarily go to that outside coach, consultant, expert in that particular area of business.
Yes.
And that's where I think a lot of practice owners struggle, is because they have not, everybody needs a mentor, everybody needs a coach to learn from. And if you're not taking advantage of that, then you're continuing to struggle with the same problems. And like you said, a lot of times you don't see them right there in front of your face. You're just feeling the effects of it.
Yeah. I mean, we all have biases, right? And we all have blind spots. And as much as we try to be like, well, I know what my blind spots are. I've had people, Neil, actually tell me that, well, Jamie, yeah, I know about biases. I know what they are. I go, they're biases. The reason they're biases because you're biased to the thing and you don't even know you're biased to the thing.
Mhm.
And we don't know what we don't know. And the only reason we're talented clinicians is not because we just wanted to, is because we were taught. And I 100% agree with you. And we've had, countless discussions around this. And somehow we get into business and we're primed to be very successful business. Like that's what kills me. There's so many people on this planet that need our help, but we're not able to provide help to enough people because we're not willing to accept help because we're trying to figure out on our own because we like to figure out and problem solve. Unfortunately, we're not problem solving a physical issue here. We're problem solving areas that we haven't been taught, but once we are, I mean, I think, some of the people I've worked with, and I know you've worked with some really special people as well, like once we get it, we can be as successful as we want. We can create any kind of business because we're already built like that. But if not, it almost creates our biggest Achilles heel is I call it SPS, smart people syndrome, where we have this syndrome of we were told our whole lives how smart we were, how intelligent we were, right? We all got A's. Very few people, except if you're old like me, I didn't have to get all A's, but the people nowadays, you can't get a B, God forbid. So you're told how smart you are. You're in the top of your class. You're the smartest people on the planet, but no one's ever said, but that's only in this area. It's only in this specialty. Like doctors, very smart. In the field of medicine, attorneys, in the field of law, you're smart in that field. And sometimes that message doesn't go through. And we think that because we have this IQ intelligence that we can build this, and many of us just struggle, and most of us never even get over the hump. We just keep putting the hours, we just keep, eking out a living and trying to, then when it's all said and done, we either sell it for nothing or sell it for pennies on the dollar, or, just kind of move on. And that's just it's a shame, but getting back to your original thing, that was it for me for sure.
Yeah. So it's about helping yourself get to that level that you have this dream when you start, right? You're like, I'm gonna have this certain dream, whatever that is for you. And it's about making sure you can get to that dream. And then once you get to that dream, a lot of times you can have that next dream, right? What I want it to be from here. And let's face it, we're all going to exit the business at some point. It might be 20 years in the future, it might be 5 years in the future, but your goal in that business is to create value in it, so that at that point when you do exit, you can exit for that's your kind of nest egg, right, that you're coming out of. So Absolutely. You had mentioned that you see as one of the biggest problems is lack of control around time, right? And so talking about systems in the business, what kind of systems should a practice owner create in order to really have more autonomy in their business and create that control of time?
Yeah, so we all have control over how we do things, right? We all have control over how we respond to things. We all have control. But what happens when you have your business is really predicated a lot on other people's time schedules. Your schedule is really someone else's schedule. Your hours are what you think other people will come in and see you. So your time is really someone else's time. And then when you add on top of that, if you take insurance, denials and things like that, and looking at your numbers and and all that kind of stuff, and your dashboard, your metrics, how you are making decisions is based on how clear-minded you are. And when you don't have control over your schedule and your time, because it's all being done by other people, you tend to get caught up in making reactive decisions or reactionary decisions. And so many times a reactionary decision around something is worse than the problem itself, such as somebody unexpectedly leaves, let's say an employee, and you're, my famous saying is always, give me a therapist with a license and a pulse, and the pulse is optional. And I say that because really I'm so desperate just to hire a therapist that can take on some patients. I really didn't take my time vetting them out properly, which created a bigger problem having the wrong person than if I just figured out maybe slow down a little bit. But to answer your question, when we look at systems, I think one of the biggest systems that we have struggle, which is really what you do so well, is the systems around marketing. Marketing it's not some magical thing. I know some other people out there like to think, I know you don't. Marketing is a system. Marketing is a set of specific activities done in a specific way. And, that's not a lot of training that we've had. We need to get, well-versed on marketing, but we don't necessarily have to be everything around marketing. And in fact, the more that we bring on other people or hire people such as yourself to do it, the more that we actually are protecting, controlling our time to focus on other important things as well. So marketing is a huge part that I see people not develop a clear, repeatable system. I know for our clients, if you're coming in kind of a younger, greener type of person, anything like below 400,000 or something, the marketing that we help you do is the marketing of building your network. Why? Because you typically have time on your hands and you don't have money. And because your practice is centrally located in a community, there's a better chance and quicker chance if you build a network of people that that can refer to you. You can ramp up not only now, but you can ramp up in the future. Then as you continue to grow and add in some other digital marketing, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck, because when other people start to see this, you're leveraging them like, oh yeah, I know Neil. And it just kind of reinforces that. So, whether it's you're building the network, whether you're leveraging, what you're doing on social or what you're doing in email campaigns or through website and SEO and stuff, it's important, whatever you're doing, it's in some type of process, some type of way that can get you fairly predictable results. And the more you can measure, the better. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think a huge problem is, but it doesn't stop there. There's a system within hiring. There's a system with onboarding. Like if you really look at it, Neil, and you and I have talked about this, what in your business is not a system or right. Can't really be systematized, even if it's a loose system? Just thinking like that in your business, like as PTs, do we not operate within a system? We operate with a SOAP note. We operate with subjective. And what if there was none? What if we literally went to school and every school just taught whatever they felt like teaching? I mean, you want to talk about our profession crashing pretty quickly. There would be complete anarchy. Mm-hmm. So if there's not a system, then you get tied into your business and you become the system, which again, you start losing control of your time in your business. So that to me is a huge part.
Excellent. And I think, from your coaching and your consulting, you teach people a lot about playbooks. And can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So, I'm always growing and always learning. And I always like learning about kind of what other people are doing, other people writing books. And something I came across not too long ago is this guy, Dan Martell, started talking about instead of a system, the way we use it, he talks about having a playbook, and he kind of relates it to this idea of a sports team or a sports franchise. So imagine, your favorite team, I'm a Redskin, well, I can't say that anymore, but I'm a Washington fan. And imagine like there wasn't a playbook, like the coach kind of explained what it was, but the person couldn't look at the playbook. They couldn't look at the pictures. They couldn't watch film. You were just trying to listen and try to figure it out the best you can. And then you had players on the field. What the heck would they do? right? You would say, well, here's what I want to do. We're going to snap the ball and we're going to try to go that way to score. But nobody knows who they're blocking. Nobody knows what patterns they're running. The quarterback doesn't know what people are doing, so they don't know where to throw the ball. It would be a complete mess. Well, in our business, if you don't have a playbook, if you don't have a place where there's a system or a process that people can access, that people can look at, and this can be done really simply, and I do want to share some things that people can do, but if you don't have that, then things are very confusing. And when things are confusing, things are unproductive. When things are confusing, people leave, or worse, people stay, because when things are confusing in your business, drama tends to happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea of the whole playbook. It's like your playbook of, this is how my place used to be called Schreier Physical Therapy. This is Schreier Physical Therapy's playbook. Within the playbook, this is Schreier Physical Therapy's. This is how we hire. This is how we market and develop relationships. This is how we do our email campaigns or social media. Everything has a way of doing it. So that's where when I meet people, that's one of the first questions I ask. Actually, I have them take a quiz first, and rarely does anyone say they have even a fairly good playbook or process in place to do things. It's typically kind of sort of done.
Yeah, kind of figured it out along the way, and here's how we do it, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
And I think for our listeners out there too, that knowing that you need to have operating procedures, playbooks in place for certain things is really critical. But sometimes it can feel overwhelming, like if you have to have this whole thing figured out. And I would just say, take the part of your business that's giving you the biggest pain right now and just work on that one area. Like, what is the standard operating procedure for that one area? What should it look like, right? And start to map that out, because once you get that figured out, then you can go to the next area and build, the playbook out for that. But as you also mentioned before, that if you're running your business just as a clinician, where's the time to put into that, right? And so you got to control your time. You got to make sure that you are allocating time in your day to work as the business leader, not as just the clinician.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why out of everything that's out there, and there's so much out there, there's so many aspects of your business and so many things that make sense and that are important. But what's the most thing that's important? The most important thing in your entire business is you, the owner. This is your business. And how you think, how you handle your own emotions, and we're people that have emotions all over the place. Business owners will challenge every emotion you ever have on an hourly basis. How we handle those things and the actions we take produce the results. So if you want better results, whether it's more referrals, whether it's better people, that you're recruiting or hiring, or anything else in your business, how to reduce the number of hours you're treating, whatever it is, it's all about, well, how are you thinking about that? And what actions are you taking in that? So the most important thing you could do for yourself is carve out time to then focus on how to get more time. Don't carve out time to do marketing. I know it's hard for me to say that. Don't carve out time to focus on your metrics or graphs or whatever it is you're doing. Carve out time to focus on what is the thing that's eating up your time. And that's where you ask the question, who can help me? Not how can I? There's a great book called Who, Not How by one of my former coaches and mentors, Dan Sullivan. And it's around looking at, well, who can help me? Is there someone in your business that can help you? Is there someone outside of your business? Maybe they're at Upworks or Fiverr, or maybe it's another person that has a product such as what you're doing as practice promotions. When you start to think like that, what you're saying is, if this person can take this off my plate, then I get back time. Now, you're not just going to sit there and say, okay, I have an hour of time. Great. I'll just watch Neil do the work. No, you're going to leverage that time into something else. And that is the single biggest thing you could call it a skill, because I believe it is a skill, because it can be learned. It's the single biggest skill that's going to exponentially grow your business when you learn how to remove, how to delegate, how to offboard things that do not light you up, things that you don't particularly enjoy. And I understand what your audience is saying right now. You have a guy, Joe, out there saying, but Jamie, I don't mind doing this. I'm, quote, saving money. If you say the words, I don't mind, you don't like to do it. And if you don't like to do it, wouldn't it make more sense to find someone who does like to do it? Because when people actually like doing what they do, they're going to be better at it. And they're going to they're going to leverage whatever it is that you're paying them to do it. They're going to get that back tenfold. But here's the kicker, Neil. Your time's also worth more than anybody's. Like, your time is worth hundreds of dollars an hour. As a clinician, might be $40 an hour, or $50 an hour. But as someone who's able to make decisions on other hires, as someone that's able to help put together a marketing plan, as someone that's looking at their numbers and quickly realizing if we're having some downtrends in areas or some negative things, you can turn it around. How much is that costing you by not doing that because you're so busy in the day-to-day? When people start to see that, and that's kind of where I take people in our program, is getting people to think differently about it. Then it becomes so much easier to dial in on whatever particular area. But it all goes back in buying back your time to do this.
Yeah, great advice there. And in buying back that time, it's about having the right people to help you. And like you said, internally in the company, right, or externally. So for you, how do you help practice owners look at training their teams to take responsibility or even be proactive in their particular roles?
Yeah, so like I said, the first thing is looking at, well, what is on your plate that is taking up your time? Once you get clear on that, then you look at, well, how much are these activities? Like, what it would cost for someone else to do it. So you can either put a dollar sign next to it, or you can put like a number, like this activity is under $15. This activity is $25. Rarely are you going to have an activity on your plate that costs more than like $40, because that's a therapist, and that's typically the highest person that you're going to have to pay. The next thing you do is you ask yourself, well, what is the activity that I least enjoy doing the most? Now, this is where our altruistic, good-hearted nature gets really challenged, because we feel guilty a lot of times allowing someone else to do the activity or delegating it. So this is where you have to really stay strong. And, with our clients, this is where, we can help them not only stay accountable to doing it, but give them that extra support. Because, Neil, it's lonely out there, man. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing lonelier than you being a business owner. Let's say you have no partners. Like, you're just by yourself. Your staff cares about themselves. The patients care about themselves. Your colleagues aren't really telling you anything because they're trying to keep whatever secrets they think they have to themselves. You're by yourself. So this is where it's critical to have that support, to have that accountability, and to have that plan in place to delegate this to someone else. And here's what's really cool. I'll give a couple tips to people how to do it. One way to do it, as you're saying, choose that activity that is fairly inexpensive to get rid of and you don't like, and then just write out very loosely, what are some of the steps it would take to do that activity? Let's say you're like, well, Jamie, I don't know. I just kind of do it the way I do it. Well, you can then record yourself. That's what's so beautiful. Like, this is being recorded. You can record yourself actually going through the process, and you can take the recording and have it transcribed. Actually, there's a really great app on Zoom now. Have you discovered Fathom, Neil?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you use Fathom. Fathom's an app on Zoom, and Fathom not only is recording the video, but it's transcribing it for you and giving you a summary. That's the power of AI. So now you can do this, get it all transcribed. Now you have this thing in writing and you have the video of the thing. Now that person can take it and they can start to use it to develop the rest of the process as they engage with it. It's really easy to do. And it doesn't take long at all and doesn't require you to sit there for hours upon hours. And I get, some people I talk to, they're like, Jamie, I'm almost done with the SOPs for my business. And I went, how many hours? It's only been a few weeks. I go, no, stop it. Just start with one, get comfortable with it. You'll get confident with it. The other person you delegate will start to do it. And then you start to repeat that. Eventually, the stuff that's left on your plate are the things you really enjoy doing. And when you start to do things you enjoy doing, your energy level goes up, your flow goes up. And of course, at the time we're recording this, basketball's happening, and I'm a big basketball fan and basketball player. It's all about being in the zone. When you're in the zone, you feel like you can't miss, no matter where you're throwing the shot up. I'm sure Steph Curry has felt like that many times. But as business owners, we can get into this zone as well. People call it within this world the flow state, getting into that thing where you're just operating. The more you're doing things you love to do and not being crushed by those other things, the more you get into that flow. When you're in that flow, your business will exponentially grow. That's what this really becomes about. And it's a win-win-win, which again, we have to get over this idea that, well, Neil, if I'm at home playing golf on a Tuesday, my staff must be suffering. No, they love treating. They're at work treating patients. They're doing what they love to do. They're winning. The patient's winning. The referral sources and the people in the area are what everyone's winning. If you don't believe in that, that's a big challenge that you have, because then you feel guilty, then you don't do it, then you suffer, and then you create bad decisions that create suffering for other people. It's this whole convoluted thing.
And I can definitely relate to that, Jamie. I know for myself, as I'm sure a lot of practice owners out there, where you feel guilty about taking time off, right? It's just a great practice, at least once a week, to just take yourself out of the clinic and work from home, right? That forces you to kind of think on working on the business, or even have some fun, right? I think as a practice owner, you need to make sure that you're having enough fun in your life too, that you're having that balance, because the time that you do spend then at the business is more focused, more productive with that. So, but it comes back to like you yourself can be the biggest roadblock to that, because you feel like if you take time off, then others would feel bad about what you're doing, and that's not the case.
Yeah, it's the bottleneck.
Right.
The bottleneck thing, right? You have your Coke bottle or whatever, and you're just sitting there at the top. Nobody will ever be able to go past you. So I was just talking to a client earlier today, and she has a pretty successful pediatric business. And, even she at this level, and her business is several million, but even at this level, she finds herself like in the business, kind of looking over, talking to people. Well, she had another project, like she wanted to start a whole nother area in the school system and stuff like that. And she didn't hire someone just yet. And she said, you know what, let me just do it. And I was like, yep, that's cool. And I'll kind of get a feel for it, and then I'll delegate and hire someone else, which she did. She just told me, Neil, today, she said, my staff came to me and said, I know your project in the school's done now. I hope you're not going to come back and do what you were doing before, because you not being here forced us to step up and actually figure out things on our own. And we love it. And the business is doing even better inside her clinics. And they're like, we love you, but don't come back. And she's like, part of her felt like, oh my God, they don't want me. I go, no. I go, this is a really good thing. She goes, you're right. They actually are great. I don't need to come back. So I think the measure of the success of the business is really the more you can reduce your time in the clinic with the day-to-day stuff. And when I say day-to-day, I mean the operational stuff, the things that other people, talented people, can do and do really well. To me, that's the measure of success. Because the more I've seen people remove themselves from that and obviously replace it with good systems and stuff like that, the greater their business grows. And the wild thing here, and Neil, I never would have believed it. Even in the books I read, I never believed it until I did it, until I'm sitting home, walking with my wife on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. My staff, who's amazing, is at the clinic. We're hitting the best numbers. We're doing all this. And I'm like, this is weird. I shouldn't feel this good. And I started to fight this guilt. But it was wild how my business started to grow and how my team started to step up. So I realized this whole idea around practice freedom, I know it's something, really out there for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be difficult. The biggest challenge is not anything that we teach you as far as technical stuff, right? Or we say, hey, you need to go to practice promotions, let them help you with all of the marketing and all of that. Like, because there's going to be other people on your team. The hardest part with all that is for you to be comfortable allowing your business to grow in this way, and for you to be in control of your time, like you mentioned, to have fun and to be a better leader, a better mentor, to care so much for people that you're going to allow them to make some mistakes. You're going to be there to support them, but not to do it for them. That's in 10 years as coaching and 28 years now as a clinician and business owner. So that is the hardest thing for practice owners to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great advice. And so, as I've talked to a lot of practice owners, and they'll say something along the lines of like, hey, I'm working really hard. But after, all the little things that go into the business, my profits seem to be lower than they should be. So like, what would you say to that practice owner that feels like they're putting a lot of work in here, but they're really not getting much out of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the person that reaches out the most. They're working hard, and working hard in so many areas in the country. I know, being kind of part of the Northeast, not exactly, but part of the Northeast, working hard and being busy is like a badge of honor. Look how hard I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to call you out, but even you said, like, I'm going on vacation a little bit. It was almost like you were telling me, Jamie, I'm feeling guilty, but I deserve this. It's like, Neil, you should be going on vacation all the time, right? Because when you do, you're going to come back energized and fired up, and it's going to force you and your team to step it up. So when you're saying that, it's really hard, you have to look at, well, what is hard about it? What is the thing that's making it hard? What is the friction? I love using that word, friction. What is the friction in your life within the business? And that's the thing you wanna tackle. I have never, and I say this with the word never in there, I have never seen a business that has a proper business model, I'll put that caveat, that couldn't make significant money. I mean, profit money, not just total revenue, profit. I've never seen one. I don't know if you have. Now, I've seen bad business models, but if you're seeing one patient an hour and getting paid $50 a visit, it's impossible to create a business that's going to be successful. It just doesn't work. But a proper business model, and yeah, that's one of the things we help too, is identify what that means. I've never seen it. So it's not that it's not capable of making money. It is. It's because you're in there not focused on the right things. And that's what you have to do, is what is the right thing to focus on. And I'll quickly say kind of one of the things to help make this easier, because all businesses are not created equal. We work with businesses that are within 0 to like 3, 4, 5 million. Most of them within 0 to 3 million. That's like most of the business really out in the country. So I put them in 3 categories. A stage 1 business, kind of like that committed clinician, where it's like just you and maybe one other person. That's like 0 to 400,000. 400,000 to $1 million is like a stage 2 business. We call that the overwhelmed operator. And then kind of this evolving business owner, evolving entrepreneur is 1 to 3 million. Each of those businesses has very different problems. And what you don't want to do is start looking at someone that has a $2 million business, but your business is 200,000, and start emulating the strategies that they're doing. You have to focus on the biggest problem that you're having within the stage that you're at. And I say that is because I've never met someone that's not busy. Like, everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's busy, but not all busyness in the same. So as you're determining some of the things that are on your plate and determining, like, what is the thing that I should be focusing on the most, the area in a smaller business is 100% on marketing, right? If you have a small business, you need clients, clients equal visits, visits equal money. If you're not focusing a good chunk of time on that, you're never going to be able to get to the next level. The next level, the focus has to be on putting much more systems in place to hire people, because you have to focus so much more on delegating, right? And then the third stage, that 1 to 3 million, and I mean gross revenue, money collected, not profit. The third stage is really about putting in your team, your management team, beginning to put in parts of your leadership team. Now you're really starting to delegate. And each of those, yes, does a stage 3 business have problems or have issues with marketing? Of course. But they also have more money, they have more staff. They can hire Neil's, highest level program in the drop of a hat. Like, they have those resources. Someone that's just starting doesn't necessarily have those resources. They might, but they don't necessarily have them. So although everyone has marketing issues, hiring issues, operational issues, financial stuff, everyone has that. They're different depending on the level. So my advice is just be clear where you are and focus on the thing that is going to move the needle for you, starting with where is your time being spent and how can you carve out a little bit to then focus on whether it's marketing or hiring or systems or building your team.
Yeah, great advice there, and that's so true. It's something I learned a long time ago, was those different phases of business, and they're actually like natural laws of business.
Yeah.
Those operational states that you go through, and you're exactly right in that you can't operate your business today as if it was a $5 million business. It's different pain problems and things that's going on, right? So you have to do what's most pressing for that stage, and then once you get to that next stage, there's usually this natural like barrier that you feel you're coming up against, right? And so then to get to that next stage, then it takes those next set of things for you to work on. Just like you said, it might be the team, might be a certain stage building the management and leadership team to take you that next step. But yeah, great advice on that.
And sometimes, Neil, you have to go backwards a little bit to move forwards. So sometimes people are just hard ass workers, right? They're just working both ends of the candle burning, they whatever they're doing, and they're making decent money, like they're making good revenue, but it's not built on any foundation. For those people, this is a hard process. And that like you talk about the natural orders of business and all that, which is where the stages come, and we call them archetypes. It's all the same, right? It's just the principles of any business. They follow these laws, period. That $1 million mark is a really interesting spot, no matter what business you're in, let alone physical therapy. That $1 million mark, I've seen people where I'm like, oh man, you're at 1.4 million. You must have X, Y, Z in place. And they're like, no, we don't have that process. Well, we don't have anybody. We don't have that team. But they were just able to make more money. Maybe they're getting paid more per visit or whatever. But you have to go down as far as, where you are with where you're focusing on building your business to wherever your baseline is. If you don't have a baseline of just most basic systems, let's say front desk or whatever, then that's where you have to go. And I think sometimes that's a little bit of a pride being swallowed of, yeah, but I'm at 1.4, I need to go up to 2 million. So I need to be focused on putting a management team. It's like, you're never going to get a management team because you have no systems in place. So your management team is going to come in and they're going to be like really upset because you're not going to be able to actually help on board and train them. So let's put that in place first. So, I think it helps people understanding these different stages in business, these different natural laws of your business, because we're all overwhelmed. We all have a million distractions. I don't know what it is. You probably know, like 3,000 a day, 4,000 a day of distractions and ads coming at us. And our problem is staying focused on doing something. So what do we do? What is like the one thing we do? It depends on which stage you're in, and it depends on what the friction is for you. Because what I care about more than anything else is the owner, because the owner makes everything else go, even more so than the staff, even more so than the patients or clients. The owner is the most important thing. If the owner's in a good place, they show up better for the staff shows up better for the clients, they show up better for building relationships with people. Everything is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome advice there. And I want to come back to what you were saying about the person in their business that was doing that 1.4 million, right? And they're doing great. They've got great profitability. However, a lot is dependent on them.
Yeah.
Right. And I see that in some practices that the individual, and there's a few people in the business making it go, right? And that's making good money. Now, the value of that business is not as high as you think because they don't have the systems in place. It's hard for someone to come in and buy that business. And if those individuals, the owner and everybody's, leaves or is removed, where's the money? Right. And so what I see a lot of times is that they'll say like, hey, Neil, I'm selling my business and, expecting to get this amount for it. And then they realize quite quickly, like they're not going to get offered that amount. And the big reason is because they are the business, right? The business isn't its own thing.
Yeah. Your business. I mean, we talked about the playbook before. Your business is your playbook. Because think about what they're actually buying. And this was something interesting because we're not selling like your business because it's a SaaS product and stuff. You're going to have a different multiple in your business, most likely. I don't know that for sure, but you may. But in the brick and mortar world, there's like certain types of things. There's 3 to 5 multiple. There's that 10 to 12 and that 20 and whatever and on. So what are they really buying? They're buying advanced time. So if I wanted to buy your practice, I'm going to pay the amount of money that I should conceivably get back within a few years. So if you make $100,000 net profit, your EBITDA is 100,000, and I'm going to give you a 3 multiple, then I'm going to give you a check for 300,000, but I expect for the most part to get that back. Well, if you're making 250,000, but you're working 80 hours a week and you're seeing, 70 patients a week, that's a very risky investment for myself. So what I would do is I would say, okay, well, I would have to replace you and all of your referral sources that they only like you. I'm taking a risk. You know what? I'll pay for your equipment and your lease. I'm going to sign you up for a 3-year commitment to stay on board. I'll give you 50,000. And all of a sudden, these owners, some like you, they come to me saying, I want to sell my business in 2 to 5 years. And they're shocked at this because they don't look at it from a way that someone that's purchasing their business. Once you have that mindset shift, you start to realize what I'm saying, which is what you do as well with practice promotions, Neil, is the more things are in some type of system, the more things that are organized, the more you're using technology, which is becoming bigger and bigger, especially with AI. And the more the owner is holding the strings, becoming that CEO, the more valuable the business is. So think about this. You learn how to build that type of business. And when you own it, you're making more money, you have more time, you have a better team, and you're helping more people. Oh, and by the way, when you're ready to sell, which you're going to have to sell eventually to someone, whether it's someone inside the clinic or outside, oh, by the way, it's going to be worth more. Who wouldn't want that? Well, everyone wants it. The challenge is you have to think differently about how you see your business, which, bringing everything full circle to our conversation, is a clinician mindset doesn't think like a business owner. In fact, it's polar opposite.
Very true. Very true. So, after listening to this podcast here, I'm sure that many, practice owners are going to be fired up about gaining more freedom in their practice, but they probably just don't know where to start. So what would you say is one simple step that a practice owner could make today, to start taking back control in their business?
Well, I would use the idea of create a list. Like, I'll give you something actionable. Create a list of the things that are on your plate right now. What are the activities that are on your plate in a given week? Like everything. Like, obviously patient care is one, but documentation is another, insurance calls, staff meetings, hopefully some marketing stuff, whatever it is, all of those activities. Look at those and determine which one you don't like the most and which one that is the cheapest to delegate to someone else. Take that activity and then use the video, and take a video of just you describing how you do that particular activity. It doesn't have to be perfect, because the other person's going to take it and actually make it better. Take the video. If you use like a Fathom or another AI, it will transcribe it for you. So then now they have something physical as well as a video.
Mm-hmm.
Just start there. It can take you 5 minutes to do that. 5 minutes. I mean, I do this all the time in my business. Anytime I'm like, okay, I need to create some, you know what, let me just shoot a video. I'll just send it and we'll just house it in our Google. Like, hey, I'm like you, I can overcomplicate the crap out of things, but that would be the next step. Experience what it's like to actually remove something and buy back a little bit of time, and then take that time and start focusing on the thing that's really going to move the needle, depending on where your business is. So that's kind of the most actionable step you can do, because without that, you really aren't going to be able to do anything to completion, because you're going to get distracted and interrupted, because you're going to try to fit it in real quick somewhere. And that's how overwhelmed and stressed is.
And you're looking at
I've never met someone who's overwhelmed and stressed, Neil, doing things they actually love in the business.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're focusing on the number one thing that's the most valuable, which is your time, right? And if you prioritize those lists, you're able to see where your time is getting sucked up, right? And then the other simple step, I think, would be go to practicefreedomu.com and check out Jamie's website there. And there's like a business value.
Yeah. So if you're
assessment tool in there too, right?
Yeah. So if you want to see where you are in your business, you want to see what stage you are in your business, we have a quiz, right? So you just go to practicefreedomu.com/a practice quiz or PT practice quiz. You'll have it in the show notes, I imagine. And then it's a real quick quiz. Take you like 5 minutes. I ask you like 30 straightforward questions. But what it does is then give you a score. It's crazy how accurate that score is compared to the challenge you're having in your business. But then what I give you is I give you different training videos around how to improve your business. So I can easily give you videos around that. So it's all free, and it gives you really a clear way of how to do it. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about what coaching does and whether you're the right fit for us and we're the right fit for you, you can certainly reach out. There's an easy way to do that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's practicefreedomu.com. Go take that test, because it's super helpful. And Jamie Schreier is just a whiz. He's got lots of advice there and years of experience in coaching and consulting successful practices. So Jamie, do you have any final words of advice for our listeners?
Yes. Don't put this podcast onto your list of podcasts and webinars that you listen to. Take one action step with this. Don't just make it I'm learning. I don't think people need to learn really anymore. We need to actually take action. We need to implement things. Implementation causes things to move. So take one thing you've learned here, whatever it is, just put it into action.
Awesome. Great words of advice there. So thanks, Jamie. It's been great having you on there. Again, check out Jamie Schreier at practicefreedomu.com. Great coach, great consultant for PT and rehab practices, tons of advice. So thank you for all your words of wisdom here, and look forward to having you again another time on the show, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure to check out practicepromotions.net/power. There, listeners can download over 9 checklists and free resources made to coach you through simple, proven marketing actions to increase new patients. So check it out today. That's practicepromotions.net/power, and I'll see you next time.